Hey, why do you look like the way that you look like? Okay, bad wording, but let's talk about it. You have 23 pairs of these things called chromosomes. Sections of these chromosomes are called genes. Different forms of these genes are called alleles, and they make up a genotype. Your genotype is going to code for your phenotype. And your phenotype is just your physical characteristics. Now, these alleles can either be dominant or recessive. Dominant alleles are represented with capital letters, while recessive alleles are represented with lowercase letters. Dominant alleles usually mask the recessive alleles, and you'll only see the recessive allele phenotype if you have two recessive alleles. Genotypes usually contain two alleles. Since these two alleles are the same, we call them homozygous. We refer to this genotype as being homozygous dominant. This genotype will express the dominant phenotype since it has at least one dominant allele. These genotypes are known as heterozygous. That's because they have one dominant and one recessive allele. They'll also express the dominant phenotype since they have at least one dominant allele. This genotype is called homozygous recessive. This genotype will express the recessive phenotype. Let's talk about Punnett squares. We use Punnett squares in genetics to find the chance of two organisms having certain offspring. Each letter is considered an allele. Two letters combined represent a genotype. These genotypes will determine the phenotype of the offspring. The phenotype is just the physical characteristics. Think of those letters as being alleles in the sperm or the egg. These boxes represent the offspring, or at least the chance of having that offspring. This is considered a monohybrid Punnett square. That's because there's only one genotype here. Each allele must be brought down and over. So this first box will be homozygous dominant. That's because both alleles have capital letters. These two boxes will be heterozygous, which means they have two different alleles. That's because they have a capital and a lowercase, or a dominant and recessive allele. This last box is going to be homozygous recessive. That's because the genotype has two recessive alleles. There's a 25% chance the offspring will be homozygous dominant, a 50% chance they'll be heterozygous, and a 25% chance they'll be homozygous recessive. Like and follow for more. Let's do this example Punnett square together. It's a cross between two heterozygous parents. We place one parent on top and one parent on the side. Pause if you want to try this out before I show you the answer. And this is the correct Punnett square you should have got. Now let's go over the genotypes and the phenotypes of the offspring, or at least the chance of having the genotypes and phenotypes. Remember that these boxes represent the chance of having an offspring. And as you can see, there's one homozygous dominant, two heterozygous, and one homozygous recessive offspring. This means there's a 25% chance of being big A, a 50% chance of being big A, and a 25% chance of being little a. To find those percents, you just take the number of total boxes divided by 4. Now, which one of these boxes will show either the yellow, which is the dominant, or the green, which is the recessive phenotype? As long as you have one dominant allele, you'll show the dominant phenotype, which means 3 of these 4 boxes will be yellow. So 75% will be yellow and only 25% will be green.
Bikini Bottom Genetics. SpongeBob SquarePants recently met Sponge Susie Roundpants at a dance. Everyone in Squidward's family has light blue skin, which is the dominant trait for body color. In his hometown of Squid Valley, his family brags that they are a purebred line. Mr. Krabs and his wife recently had a little Krabby. One of SpongeBob's cousins, Sponge Billy Bob, recently met a cute SquarePants gal, Sponge Gertie. SpongeBob's mother is so proud of her son and his new wife, Sponge Susie, as they are expecting a little sponge. SpongeBob's aunt is famous around town for her itty-bitty stubby nose.